Hello and welcome. I'm Anand Naidu, sitting in for Riz Khan. Is Afghanistan, a country ravaged by war for the past 3 decades, finally on its way to stability? US President Barack Obama has unveiled his strategy for the country. He wants to increase the number of American troops there, send in hundreds of civilians, and increase development aid. In return, he's calling on the Afghans to tackle widespread corruption and clamp down on the opium trade. The US president also wants neighboring Pakistan to take on extremists and has promised more non-military aid for that country. This week, the United States will earnestly begin selling its revised plan. It comes on the eve of an important meeting on Afghanistan in The Hague. On today's show, we're taking a look at US President Barack Obama's revised strategy and ask the question, what's next for Afghanistan? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. Log on to livestation.com/AJE, enter the chat room, and then take part. We also welcome your phone calls on this show. To discuss the issue here with me, I'm joined by Lisa Curtis, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. She's had extensive experience working on South Asian affairs for the US government in Washington and abroad. From Los Angeles, documentary filmmaker and activist Robert Greenwald. He recently returned from Kabul, where he's been conducting interviews for his new film, Rethink Afghanistan. You can watch excerpts at rethinkafghanistan.com and on YouTube. And from Dubai, I'm joined by Mirwais Yassini, presidential candidate in Afghanistan's upcoming elections and deputy speaker for the lower house of parliament. He's also the former head of Afghanistan's counter-narcotics directorate. Welcome to all of you to the show. Robert Greenwald, I want to start with you. You've just been to Kabul. You've been conducting interviews, as I mentioned there, for your documentary Rethink Afghanistan. Here in the United States, the president has been talking about his strategy for a new approach to Afghanistan, his rethink on Afghanistan, if you like. Is it the same, what you were thinking of and what he was thinking of?
Well, it wasn't so much what I was thinking of as asking a series of questions that need to be asked on behalf of both the American and the Afghan people. And substantial questions: how many troops, how long, what's the cost, how do we know when to get out, are the sort of key ones that we're focused on. But having just come back from Kabul, unfortunately what we're seeing and we're hearing is primarily a military solution. We're not hearing about 17,000 teachers going in. We're not hearing about 17,000 doctors going in. So from that point of view, the people I spoke to in Afghanistan were unhappy and looking for the United States to get involved in a variety of non-military ways that can lead to security.
So from what you're saying, I would gather that what the Afghan people want, the ones that you talked to anyway, was that they don't want any more American troops in the country.
Well, as everyone knows, the single biggest reason for the resurgence of the Taliban is foreign troops. They serve as an organizing point, they serve as a way to stimulate a kind of nationalism, and they have been very effective recruiters for the Taliban. And we've seen it in the polls in Afghanistan. So the notion that troops are going to bring security is an outdated one. And for a changed president, I hope and I believe we will ultimately see substantial and significant other ways of looking at the problem rather than militarizing what is a political problem.
Okay. Lisa Curtis, isn't the Obama strategy to send in the troops to secure the country so that these services like education, like the building of clinics, like the building of hospitals, etc., could be accomplished?
Well, I think part of what he has said is true, that in a sense, sending more troops does provide a rallying cry for the Taliban and other extremist organizations. And in fact, we have seen the Pakistani Taliban now starting to team up with the Afghan Taliban, and even seeing President Obama's speech as a rallying cry. So there is a certain amount of truth to that. However, I would focus on what he said about the troops and what they're going to be doing. And he talks about securing the population. And I think this is critical, that before you can really deliver reconstruction assistance and rebuild these areas, they have to be secure. But I think we will see less of a focus on things like aerial bombardments. We will see the forces embedding with the people, finding out what the people need, and communicating directly with the local population. I think that will be the focus. And of course, he's also called for a civilian surge, which means sending hundreds of, maybe thousands of civilian workers, agriculture specialists, technical specialists, people to carry out the reconstruction. Because what we see right now are U.S. troops are doing a lot of the reconstruction. They're doing a good job, but this is not what they're trained for. And as the former guest said, this is not really what the Afghan people want. The Afghan people want to interact with civilian leaders, with aid specialists. And I think that is what we'll see from President Obama. The troops, yes, to provide the immediate security, but ultimately there has to be the reconstruction assistance following after these areas are secure.
Okay, let's go to Riz Yassini in Dubai. So do you think the Obama strategy is the correct one?
Well, in my view, also in the view of many Afghans, the Obama strategy is a comprehensive one. It is based on the ground realities there, and it's a very practical one. And just I would like to refer to the comments of two respected guests that the increase of troops in Afghanistan. Well, the Afghan badly need 17,000 troops to ensure the security of upcoming election in August. And that is very, very important for the short-term goals that to ensure the happening of the election, which must be in fair and impartial, in a balanced way. That has to occur, and we cannot undermine that. In Obama strategy, we have 4,000 more trainers that they have to go to train the Afghan army and the Afghan police. In Obama strategy, we have to have the civilian and professional personnel of the United States to go and help in an institution building. So to me, from that perspective, the strategy is ineffective in broad-based and practical strategy.
The other change, Lisa Curtis, that we noticed in the Obama approach is that he's now treating the problems in Afghanistan and the problems in Pakistan as one problem. He's seeing Afghanistan and Pakistan as one theater. We haven't seen that in the past, have we?
No, I think that's correct. He is seeing the problems as related. He says they're inextricably linked, and I think that's true. But he also made clear that the tactics for dealing with the countries would be different. And he acknowledges that they are two very different countries, but the problems that they're facing right now are linked. And one of the focus will be in increasing civilian assistance to Pakistan. In fact, he talked about tripling our non-military assistance to Pakistan, which is very significant, especially during this time of economic downturn globally, that he committed to this much assistance. But at the same time, he said that military assistance would be based on benchmarks for Pakistan going after extremist sanctuaries in Pakistan. So I think he made clear the days of the blank check for Pakistan were over, that there would be benchmarks that he would expect to be met in terms of Pakistan going after the terrorist targets. And the situation in Pakistan is enormously complicated. We saw that in the past 4 days. There's been two major attacks, attack on a mosque in the tribal areas, over 50 people killed. Today, an attack on a police training facility in Lahore, over 26 dead. So it just shows how enormously complicated and serious the situation in Pakistan is. And I think his remarks reflected that.
Robert Greenwald, would you agree that the new Obama approach is an acknowledgement that there is no military solution to the problem in Afghanistan?
No, I would not agree. I wish that were the case, and I've heard those words, but if there's no military solution, why are we now increasing where we will have over 60,000 troops there? Why not increase to have 60,000 people who will monitor the elections, or as I say, doctors, or to provide jobs? Look, I was in Kabul on Thursday, and I witnessed and participated in an extraordinary event. There were 25 Taliban turning in their rifles and guns at a peace commission. And I went around and I talked to them and I said, what is it that you want? And what they said was jobs and security for their family. And these are the things that the United States has tremendous capacity to provide, but I feel we are still trapped in a kind of failed old way of thinking, which, as one of our friends in Afghanistan said, shoot now, think later.
Okay, Mr. Yassini, I want to go to an SMS which we received just a few minutes ago on this issue, and this is Sam, who writes to us from Montreal in Canada, and he asks, what role should India and China have in Afghanistan? And he points out that Russia is already in Kyrgyzstan.
Well, the important role which China and India can play will be in the reconstruction of Afghanistan, number one. Number two, that they can enter into dialogue, the regional dialogue, like in Shanghai Conference or in other regional conferences. And they can contribute a lot toward the peace in Afghanistan. We have to admit that Pakistan and India also have their own border problem. I mean, the more sincere way that both countries can enter the dialogue between themselves will also benefit the western border of Pakistan or the eastern border of Afghanistan, and the border area can be secure. So there is a bigger role in economic terms, in political terms for China and India in this respect, and also for Kyrgyzstan, because Kyrgyzstan is one of the regional power in terms of particularly in terms of the food in oil that they can supply to Afghanistan into the region, and that can make us to stand on our feet in near or in the longer future.
Okay, we have lots more to talk about, and we're getting some emails on these issues as well, but we have to take a short break right now. More of our discussion on those issues in a moment. As we pause, let me remind you that you can join the conversation with your questions and comments by logging on to livestation.com and entering the chat room. You can see the debate taking place there right now. We're also taking a poll in the chat room where we're asking, is President Obama adopting the right strategy in Afghanistan? We'll have the answers in a moment. We'll be right back.